All right, guys, here we are, back over here in the shop. I wanted to talk a little bit about LEDs. I meant to talk about it more when I did the walk around of the Doka on our last show, but it escaped me. I showed you the coming on and off of the lights and how bright they are and how white and sort of pure the light emitted from them is, and just how overall satisfied I was with their installation. But I didn't really say much more about it, so that's what we're going to do now. Let's do a little bit of history on LEDs. I have to credit everything to Wikipedia, and I hope this is true. I didn't do any fact checking. I'm sure you'll let me know if I'm wrong. But LEDs, I got to also be careful because I can get over my head pretty quick when it comes to talking about transistors and all this heavy-duty electronic stuff. But LEDs are PN junction diodes that emit light. They work on a thing called electroluminescence, which was actually discovered in 1907 by H.J. Round at Marconi Labs. The LEDs that we use today, the first sort of practical electronic components were developed in 1962. They have quite a few benefits over an incandescent light, such as longer life. They are more robust. They don't have a filament in there that can wiggle around and get broken. They are smaller. They are faster switching. You wouldn't really think that you could tell, but anybody who's been in traffic, you can tell, like a newer car, the taillights just come on much faster than the older lights. I mean, it's fractions of a second, but it matters, and that could really matter in other electronic applications. And then the part we're really interested here with electric vehicles is that they use lower energy. They're more efficient. They get more light out of the same amount of current going through them. And back when EVTV started, there wasn't really a whole lot available for cars. With a gas engine, you don't really care about how much electricity you're consuming through your headlights. You just sort of plug something in and go. The wider the better, of course, but you're really not concerned with how many watts you're consuming. The store, EVTV store, started carrying the truck light and the GE Nighthawk 7-inch sort of sealed beam style LEDs. They were quite expensive, but they were pretty much your only option, and that's only if you had a car that would accept those. Like all of our VWs, they all take them. The Things and the Speedsters, they all use those. Speedster does a Speedster? I'm not sure, but they all use those. And they're extremely nice. They look cool from the front, and they do project an extremely daylight-like light that's very pleasing to the driver. Not real sure if it's pleasing to the oncoming traffic, but as long as they're aimed correctly, which they should be, and in the case of an LED, they really need to be. So that's why we've used them. Those truck lights and Nighthawks, they were rated at 1.8 amps per unit in low beam and 3.6 amps per unit in the high beam. As we're doing the Doka project, one of the first things you do when you're to that stage is replace all of the lights, the blinkers, the tail lights, the reverse lights, as many lights as you can with the LEDs. We carry a number of different styles in the store, 1156, 1157s. That's what you replace the blinkers and the marker lights and all that with, and I did that. I also wanted to replace the headlights. The lights used in the Doka are the 9007 series of headlights. I can speak to Ford. I know that Ford uses those, and I know that because my truck had them, and for a long time, ever since I did a conversion, I've been looking for a good set of 9007 high-low beam headlights to replace my halogens. So once we got to the Doka part, I looked on eBay and Amazon, and sure enough, there's a company called Auxbeam, as well as numerous other ones, but Auxbeam had the highest reviews, so we went ahead and went with them. They're called the Auxbeam F16 series LED headlights, Cree, high-low beam, 50 watts, 500 luminescence low beam with 50 watt high beam. So that was kind of a strange thing that the high and the low beams were both 50 watts. And I actually took an amp meter and clamped around the terminal, clamped around the wires, and it is actually the same amount of wattage in both high and low. The difference being that on the light, I'll show you here in a minute, there's two LEDs. One of them's on one side, one of them's the other side. When one of them's on, it hits the reflector that does the low beam part, and when the high beam is on, it hits the reflector that does the high beam. So it's not really using different lights, it's just being aimed differently through the reflectivity elements of your headlight. In addition to those, we also installed the Calais, C-A-L-A-I-S, extremely bright golden color H3. They're 30-watt LED fog lights. Those are the yellow ones that you see in the middle. On the Doka, whenever you turn the high beams on, the fog lights come on as well. And kind of got the yellow ones just because, well, the Doka's yellow and it would look cool, and it really does look cool. So that's why you did that. They've got them in different colors. The color of an LED is based on, it's engineered to have a different light based on the distance between the sort of electrodes within the PN junction. So anyway, we replaced the standard 9007 halogens, which everybody's pretty familiar with. They always give you a warning not to touch this because if your oil fingers get on there, over time it can make the bulb not last as long. I did a little bench test on these just to see what kind of power these are drawing. And for the low beams, they draw individually, each one draws 3.1 amps for low beam and 5.5 amps for the high beam each. And whenever I did the amperage test on my truck, when I turned the headlights on, both lights drew 4.1 amps. So if you do some math, 4.1 amps at around 13.3 volts, 54 watts, versus a halogen, which is each at 3.1 to 5.5 amps. It winds up being two of those lights is about a 25% savings in energy compared to one halogen light. So there you go. Where they do make up for it though a little bit is the price. $53.99 a pair is what Amazon is currently charging for the aux beam headlights, and you can get a pair of halogens for 17 bucks a pair. I suppose you could make up for that in that the LEDs will last considerably longer, so you don't have to replace them as often. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, here's the truck lights. We've still got some of these in the store. If anybody's got a VW or something that takes 7-inch lights, we've still got them in the store, so they're available to you. And then this was the LED lights that we got from Auxbeam. So the way that these work, if you've got 9007s and you want to do this, I can't speak to all of the different types of bulbs, 9004, 9005, 9000, there's a dozen of them. But for the 9007s, if you have those in your car and you want to convert them and you get some just like this, the instructions that come with the light are pretty awful. They're actually for a different style of bulb completely. You can't use them at all. They say that you need to unscrew the back of the bulb, and if you try and do that, you'll just cut your hands, basically. So I used the power of the internet and found someone that figured it out. And what you have to do to install these things is there's a little rubber seal, little gasket that's on the bottom of all these style of lights. You have to actually remove that rubber seal. You have to take it off, and there's two of the tiniest Phillips head screws you've ever seen, and they're clocked at about noon and 6, if you will, or 9 and 3, however you want to look at it. So you have to undo those, and then this black piece right here slides off, and then this piece that I'm spinning right now, comes off of your car. So you have to take those screws out, slide this black piece off, slide this piece on over a little fan that's in the back here that keeps the LED cool, slide this black piece back on, and then tighten the screws. Now it's important that you clock it correctly, because as I was saying before, there's two elements. There's these two over on this side, these two over on this side. They're otherwise identical, but one's on this side, one's on the other. So it is possible to get it wrong, so that whenever you put your low beams on, your high beam is actually on, and then when you put your high beam on, low beam is actually on. Ask me how I know. So what you want to do is just make a little mark on the black part and on the light, and just make sure you get it back together correctly. It's not a big deal. And even if you get it wrong, it's still not a big deal just to go in there and take it back all apart and fix it. So that is how that works. And don't forget to put the little rubber seal back on. That's kind of an annoyance. Also included with the kit is this, I guess it's some sort of a transformer. I'm not really 100% sure on that. It's got an input voltage of 12 to 24. The website actually says these will go up to 48 volts. I haven't tried it. But this little transformer, and the way I understand it is when an LED is on, as it stays on, it continues to draw more and more amperage, and it'll eventually burn itself up. So you got to put sort of a voltage regulator on it or something. So that's about what I know. That's the extent of my knowledge right there when it comes to LEDs. So that pretty much takes care of it. Yeah, and I liked them so much on the Doka that I went ahead and bought some for myself. And I can tell you, absolutely, at night, it's a big difference with being able to see where you're going. Even the halogens, which were like so much better than the normal incandescents, they're more of a yellow light, whereas the LEDs are much whiter, sort of daylight, sunlight style, and it's much nicer to drive to. So that's where we are with headlights. Stay with us.
Okay, we're going to talk about something kind of boring, but from our very first conversion, of course, the concept is range. And any place we can save energy, we want to. At that time, with the 1957 Speedster, LED light bulbs were just becoming available. And we could get the 1157s and the 1107s for the turn signals and the brake lights and that sort of thing, parking lights, pretty easily. They weren't real good at that point. They've gotten a lot better. But headlights were near enough impossible. And in fact, I read several descriptions of why it was too hard. There's heat issues, and you have to be able to have enough heat to get rid of the humidity that builds up in the headlight, but not so much that, and yada, yada, yada. A few years later, we started using these. This is a truck light headlight. And they're pretty good. They're pretty bright, and they're fairly low wattage, but they come in one size, a 7-inch round, and that's what you get. And they were $750 a pair. This is not good. But it could dramatically reduce the amount of 12-volt power. Headlights use quite a bit of current. The incandescents, you could spend 20 amps on a headlight budget, and even the halides would be 5 or 6 amperes. And LEDs are simply much more efficient at producing lumens, that is measurable light, from watts, and that is measurable drain on your battery pack. So we liked the truck lights, but they've gotten better. Leave it. Most headlights today in modern cars don't use the 7-inch thing. They have a variety of fixtures and in a variety of sizes, but they tend to use, wouldn't say a limited number, there's quite a few, aren't there?
Yeah.
Of bulb inserts.
Right.
And I'll put one of these up here so you can see it. You change the bulb inside the headlight fixture.
That's right.
And but there were so many of them, it was kind of hard to address with LEDs. But they have addressed it, and most of them are made in China now. Again, a pair of truck lights was $750. What did we invest in headlights here, Bill?
Well, I did some internet searching for 9007 bulbs, which is what our Doka uses. And
the Doka uses 9007s on both sides?
9007s on the outside of both sides. Yep.
And what does it use in here?
These are little fog lights. They are H3s. Those are H3s. They're just single element. These are dual element, so high and low beam, and then these are single element.
Now, the original Vanagon, wasn't this low beam and this high beam?
There's been various iterations through the years, but this is just set up when you turn the high beams on. This one comes on. This one goes to high beam, and the fog light comes on. Okay. That's just how it's wired up on this one. I think some of the older ones had actually a single 7-inch sealed beam, kind of like our other things do, but this is...
Well, no, I think it was going to the dual bulb. Originally, I think this was the low beam and these were the high beams, and that's why it comes on. You wouldn't normally select high beam to get a fog light.
Right.
But we've kind of made them into fog lights. You found some LEDs that actually are yellow.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Kelvin rating is on it?
They are 1200. 1200. I guess that's lumens or...
Well, now lumens is something else. That's a
Kelvin
measurement. What you'll run into these LED headlights is lumens, and that's the power output. And you tend to pay more for more output for the same wattage. That's a more efficient LED. And then they'll have a color. 6500 Kelvin is kind of your normal white light. I like something in the 5,000 range. It's just a little softer. A lot of guys get the purple lights up 7,500 or 8,500, and I've seen them over 10,000. That's almost a UV looking
blue,
purple.
isn't it? Purple,
yeah,
blue.
Yeah. That'll get you in trouble with the police around here. And then, but a yellow one is like about a 1,200 Kelvin.
Okay.
Because probably 2,000 or 2,500. But a very warm, almost orange glow. And so we were able, Bill was able. Now, I mean, used to you had to get truck lights from us. I've still got some back there. I'm heavily invested in them, and they're completely obsolete. No one would ever pay that for a headlight. Now you can get on Amazon.com and get these. I believe our main light here is a 9007 insert.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, what's our current drain? How much power do these use?
Okay, well these particular ones are from a company called Auxbeam. Like I said, I got them on Amazon there, and I've got the same ones on my truck. Actually, I put an amp meter on the truck, and with both lights going at the same time, it pulled 4.1 amps. It's about 54 watts for both lights going at the same time. And that would compare to halogens, which is what I replaced, which are on low beam setting about 41 watts each, as opposed to 54 for the pair of them. And then on high beam, the halogens are 73 watts each. And so yeah.
Okay.
So significant.
What's our total here for the 4 lights, do you think?
The interesting thing about these LEDs is they've got 2 LED elements. They're dual sided, so there's 2 on this side and then there's 2 on that side when it comes in here. And what happens is on the low beam, say these 2 light up, and then you flip high beam, these ones light up. These ones turn off, these ones come on, and it just uses a different part of the projection, a different part of the optics to raise that beam so you get your high beam. So the current draw in high and low is actually the same. Yeah, so if you've got your high beams on, that's again 54 watts for the pair, and then the little Calais extremely bright golden color are what are they? They're rated at 50 watts for the pair, so 104 watts total for high beams.
Yeah, 12 volts. That's still 8 amps or 9 amps.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, can you fire them up? I just had Bill change the lights where we have to turn on the ignition to turn on the lights. That's because I left them on the other night at a bar. Yeah, see if you can fire them up. There we go.
We got, yep. So that's just our normal low beams, and then there's our high beams. Nice yellow, 'cause we like yellow.
So the reason I'm kind of enthused about this is, number one, price. You can get everything we put in here for 76 bucks on Amazon.
Yeah, 54 for the
tenth the cost.
Yeah, 54 a pair for the 9007s and 22 a pair for the little H3s. H3.
I think Bill made up the fog light thing and decided they were fog lights and put in yellow ones. What did we have in here?
They were just white lights.
Just white lights. Yeah, I think we've converted our high beams to fog light, but that's okay. That's still kind of cool, and they look good. So that's for a tenth the cost. We're really having a brighter light and a more usable system if one of these goes out, and they do supposedly last longer than the halides and the heads especially.
Right.
But we just changed the bulb, and those are increasingly more available on Amazon. The problem is searching for the particular light bulb you need for your car. But that's anything else we ought to mention about headlights?
No, nothing really comes to mind. I don't.
We put some new Bosch big blades or something.
Yeah, they're about an inch or so longer than the
Are they longer?
Yeah, they're just a little bit longer.
Yep. And we had a broken aerial here, and again we got that from not Go Westy, but
Bus Depot. Bus Depot?
No. What was the name of that place? Anyway, we got our aerial replaced so we can have a radio and new windshield wipers, and so that's. But headlights were the big thing. So now we have LEDs on all our marker lights and everything, tail lights, turn signals, all that.
Everything's LED.
And that's about the best you can do. You want good lighting, of course, but the LEDs are the kind of a necessity for an electric vehicle to reduce the energy use and extend your range any little place you can. The good news is they've become somewhat trivially priced at this point compared to what we used to have to do, and more universally available. There are very few headlights that use bulb inserts that they don't have LEDs for now. Right. The one thing I've noticed, if you turn them on, let's see if we can hear this, they have a little fan back there.
Yep.
Put them on high. I can hear it inside the bus, but I can't really hear it out here. Yeah, you can just barely make it out. It's a little fan to keep them cool.
Yep.
So that's part of the technology. But I'm delighted with our headlights on this. We ought to aim them at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
At something. But they're very bright and do a great job on the road. I've already been out with them, and they illuminate things very nicely. Steve was, let's talk about paint.
I will. I do have one more thing to add about these bulbs. I just thought of it. If you do go get these Auxbeam 9007s, the instructions for them are they're off the chart horrible. The instructions are actually for a different bulb entirely. They don't explain at all how to install it. I had to, use the power of the internet to figure it out. You have to actually remove this little rubber O-ring that's on the bulb and take out 2 little set screws so that you can take that apart to put a little plastic collar on. Then you got to put it back together, put the set screws, and then you can put that in here. The big problem is that the set screws are at 180 degrees to the bulbs, to the lights that I was talking about, so you can get it upside down. If you don't mark it, take note. So what you end up with is a high beam that's up here and a low beam that's down here, and vice versa when you switch it. So it's
kind of a point of view. You might be a Rachel Madcow person on MSNBC and believe Trump is the devil incarnate, or you might be a Hannity person on Fox and think that he's being beset by devils. I've read Chinese documentation for their products for so long now, I'm getting to where I kind of like it. Now, the scary part is I'm starting to even understand little parts of it. But it's much more entertaining to read the documentation with all the Chinglish in it than just the dry U.S. stuff that just tells you how to put it together. That kind of takes all the, as my father used to say, if all else fails, read the instructions. And with the Chinese components, I've gotten to where I tear the box open and pull out the instructions first, get a cup of coffee, and just howl. And then I go try to figure out how to put it in on my own. So it's a matter of point of view. I like the Chinese. They're very
No, I do too. It's cute. They are cute.
Stay with us. We've been posting some little mini videos. I think they like them better than my big long-winded ones. In fact, one of the viewers said they play it at 1.5 times speed and they like it better. And another one said he plays it at 2 and he likes it even better than that guy. But we get a lot of feedback from our viewers, and this week we finally have a name for the Doka.
You come up with a name for it?
I haven't. No, one of our viewers did.
Uh-oh.
The yellow rubber Doka, particularly efficacious around bath time.
Nice. And
the reason he did so is the long, sorry, and sordid tale of the paint job.
Oh dear.
You may remember Charlie. Charlie has retired. He was my carpenter for 12 years, but he got to be 76 years old. I was kind of paying him to change light bulbs around here 3 hours in the morning. And he finally gave out even on that, said he just couldn't get up on the ladder anymore.
Yeah.
And 4 days after he retired, he had a stroke, although he's doing very well now.
Good for him.
His nephew had a son who painted cars and agreed to paint this Doka yellow and kind of fix the rust for $3,000. But he was kind of a one-man shop in a shed, and so we had to pay him so he could get the stuff to do it. So we paid him the $3,000. Well, then his wife left him, took his dog, his air compressor broke down, and he wouldn't even give us the Doka back. I sent Charlie over there to kick his ass, and he come back with the Doka.
Wow.
But it was about half done. And then we had a guy come from Springfield. I had this trick idea. Again, not my idea. It's always better to steal an idea than to go through the pain of actually idea birth.
Right.
So there was a gentleman who had painted his Tesla flat black. No, not flat black, stealth black.
He ruined a brand new Tesla with...
And that's what I said. How can you ruin a brand new Tesla by painting it flat black with Plasti-Dip?
Sounds
and
horrible.
He said, "Oh no, contraire." He was kind of a French guy.
Oh, cool.
He said that you paint it with this, and then you can just peel it off later.
I'll peel the paint off.
No, it leaves the paint unscathed.
Wow.
You can just peel it off later, and you have your showroom paint job.
So it really protects the
It really protects the paint.
Oh, cool.
So I wanted to get it done. So I had a guy come from Springfield, Missouri, who was a certified Plasti-Dipper.
Went to school.
You know, I don't know. How do you get to be a certified Plasti-Dipper?
You have a printer? You have you can make a certificate? I don't know.
Yeah. My friends laughed when I sat down at a piano, but when I began to play, that's a famous 1930s mail order ad.
Okay.
Anyway, he shows up. They have Plasti-Dip, and then they have a pearlescent coat you can put on it, or you can put a gloss coat. Ooh. And so he proceeded to paint it with the pearlescent coat. I said, "What happened to the yellow coat?" He's like, yellow coat, yellow coat.
Oh dear.
Oh, and then he found it in the box.
You forgot.
I actually gave him the $1,000 and sent him home. Then we just had a guy here in town that said he could do it, and he more or less did. Among these three people, of course, they would take off this hardware, and by the time the three of them got done, they had taken it off and put it back on at least 3 times. They had never painted it once. And we had precisely 2 screws on each thing. They had lost the screws along the way.
Great.
So Dylan and I this week pulled these off, and he bead blasted them, put a coat of Rust-Oleum gloss black on them, and we put new screws.
Looks good.
Recall from our wheel spin video, after all the painting, we had a fire in here. And the Doka was in here. It was on the far side of the room on the lift over there. So it really wasn't hurt by the fire. But everything in the place got a coat of really nasty black soot.
Soot, yeah, it sure did.
And we immediately cleaned that off of all the cars because it can be corrosive. But for some reason we didn't do the Doka. And kind of the reason why, because I didn't think of it, but everybody didn't think of it, because it's kind of got a rough rubber surface, and we didn't think any of that would ever come off.
You just ruined it.
It was ruined. And so we had this yellow Doka, but it had been through the fire and was covered with soot. And then we had been pushing it around and working on it for like 1.5 years, 2 years. And so we had our greasy handprints all over it.
Everywhere.
So in the wheel spin, I apologized for it and said, we're just going to call that a neo steampunk rat rod look.
Right. Oh, the wheel spin one was up on the lift.
Right.
Not the down the road one.
No, when it was
lift,
on the
right,
first
yeah,
wheel
yeah.
spin.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I call it neo steampunk rat rod.
Gotcha.
And we're just going to leave it. But I was walking by one day, and I told Leo, give me a can of Scrubbing Bubbles and a rag. This is Scrubbing Bubbles. It's a Dow Johnson & Johnson, actually, cleaner that it kills 99.9% of the viruses and bacteria. It's a bathroom cleaner, actually, and it sprays a foam. I actually learned to use this on airplanes. It has a cleaner, but it also has an abrasive. But it's a very, very mild abrasive. It's not like Comet or something. It's, you can't feel it.
More like a polishing compound kind of.
Yeah, kind of a really fine abrasive.
Gotcha.
And so it's, you normally don't wash a plane by running it through a car wash, unless it's a big plane, and they do have those. But we would simply go around and put Scrubbing Bubbles on it. And cloth airplanes and aluminum airplanes and painted airplanes, it worked on all of them.
Cool.
And all surfaces, and was really good at cleaning. So it's one of my favorite cleaning things. So I asked Leo to get some Scrubbing Bubbles, and I wiped the place on the side of the board here, and I was astounded. There was this neon yellow underneath it, and the stuff just came right off. So we went over the whole van, and in less than an hour, we had cleaned all that soot and grimy handprints and stuff. Now it's collecting some more. The other adventure here at EVTV, and there's only a few of us work here. Right now we have Bill, Dylan, and Leo, who is actually Ching Feng Leo.
Ching Feng Leo.
Known as Feng Zit.
Wow, that's a lot of names.
Yeah, that's a nickname.
Oh.
I won't tell you what it means. But anyway, I work on the computer mostly in the morning, doing correspondence, ordering stuff, dealing with vendors, writing documentation and software uninterrupted, and then I come in the afternoon apparently someone's been standing on the side of the vehicle. I don't really understand any of that.
You've made an enemy.
No, they found a place to stand.
Okay.
But
okay.
How do you do that vertically? So we're going to use it to demonstrate our scrubbing bubbles.
So are you a certified scrubbing bubble applicator?
You know, I'm not a certified dip it guy, but I am a certified scrubbing bubble guy.
Woo. Look at that.
And I mean, it comes off easy, and it cleans it completely.
That's like magic.
It's like cleaning plastic, because that's what it is.
Yeah, sort of. That's what it is.
That's why they call it Plasti-Dip.
Nice.
Duh. And so, you know, we just found that in less than an hour, we did this whole thing, and I got all jazzed up because it was looking so good, and it's kind of reinvigorated the project. So a lot of this build has unfortunately been, and it's our experience that it usually is, we had to do a lot of work on the brakes. Charlie and Jim worked on them.
Yep.
I worked on them. And then Bill had to fix what Charlie and Jim and Jack had done. And when it got done, our brakes were locked up and made a horrendous racket.
They were bad.
But he got that worked out too, with a 12-pound precision sledge.
Yeah.
And so this goes back to our, really EVTV was inspired and modeled on a guy in New Zealand called Gavin. Sorry, Gavin, I always forget your last name. He called it Gav's EV. And Gav built a super cheap EV using the cheapest possible components on a junk car that he bought for $200. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, they have inspections. And so he got it licensed and he drove it for a year, and then he went to get it inspected to get it relicensed, and they told him it had to have frame rust amelioration, which would have cost about 12 times what the car was worth. And so he sold the car for about half the value of the components he'd put in it to a guy that was using it for another build, and that gave him enough money to take his wife to Tahiti for the weekend.
Well, everybody wins.
Well,
kind of.
that was the end of Gav's EV.
Oh, well.
He's since moved to some Eastern Bloc country, and they don't really let you build the electric cars. But he did buy one. So he's still in the game.
Good for him.
But it was a lesson for us all. I saw this over and over. The belief system is not particularly good among people starting an EV project. It's kind of like, I'd like to play with that, but I don't really think I can make it be a car. It's just something to play with in the garage.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, you can make it work. And in fact, it'll work most of the time. But if you take a piece of junk and you put electric components in it, you have an electrically powered, very smooth accelerating piece of junk. And so we've tried to buy good cars on eBay. Of course, we get taken about half the time, but when we get underneath, even of a good classic car, the underneath side has got some problems. Rust and so forth.
Yeah.
We've got to be pretty good at that, really. With we actually kind of blast it and then hit it with truck bed liner. I love truck bed liners, tough as shit. And you spray it on, and then you can't. It's just
gets rid of your sins.
It hides all sins and encases them, entombs them, into a very tough coating.
Good.
But then we inevitably, I don't think we've done a car, we haven't had to replace at least all the shock absorbers, all the springs, all the brakes, usually the hubs, and often the steering box and parts of the steering.
Ends up being a partial restoration.
Yeah, a partial restoration,
Yeah.
which is even better than doing a full restoration. If you try to fully restore a car and convert it to electric drive, it always sounds good, but it winds up being overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're just swamped in all the things you didn't think you'd have to do that you have to do before you can do the things that you didn't think you'd have to do that you have to do,
Right.
which comes before the things you thought you had to do,
And
which you still need to do.
And speaking from experience, a restoration is quite a bit harder than an actual conversion at all, and then you got to do both of them. It becomes, it's just a lot.
The conversion can be a challenge, but it's almost a mental challenge. It's really a serial exercise in small problem solving. And if you just take them one at a time, the day comes when you simply back out of the driveway because you can't think of anything that you need to do yet.
Right.
So we would recommend you not do too much of a challenge there. We bought this vehicle from Otmar Ebenhoek. Otmar's in Oregon now. When I first met him, I think he was in California and doing PWM controllers for DC Motors. Those days are kind of past, and he's moved north, but is still, once you get bitten by the EV bug, you can actually quit this, by the way, but you can't stay quit. It's kind of like cigarette smoking. It's not hard to quit, it's just hard to stay quit. And but he's had the same experience. But we bought this from him, and we wanted to work on the running gear, and I wanted it yellow, and ergo the Plasti-Dip. He, 3 years ago, had announced a very ambitious project to take two Vanagons and put them together in what he called the Stretchla, and power it with a Tesla battery pack and Tesla drivetrain. I had some questions about that, but they were mostly about suspension issues and configuration, which is usually where I get lost. We face that on almost every vehicle. I never know how we even get it done, but it's always an issue. But he kind of encountered the same thing and basically didn't complete the project. This week he's announced he's found a new Vanagon Westphalia and is restarting the project to Teslaize a 90 Westphalia.
Excellent.
The same basic vehicle, but in a van, kind of a light camper situation, and he found a really good one.
Nice.
And so he's embarked on it again. Let's take a look at Otmar's blog update, the first in about 2.5 years, on the Stretchla. Now the test failure.
Test failure.
I'm Otmar Ebenhoek, and this is a long overdue Stretchla project update. It's been quite a while since I've updated people, and I think on my last blog I mentioned that I was having trouble getting parts and support, this was years ago, from Tesla for my Recla, the parts car for the Stretch Vanagon project. I want to first clarify that actually that hasn't changed a whole lot. Tesla's not being any more helpful with the salvage cars as of yet. But what has changed is that there are so many wrecked Teslas out there, and other people who have helped me learn to hack into the root systems of the Tesla, so we can do all the maintenance necessary, all the diagnostics, have our own remote access system. And there's quite a few wrecked Teslas for parts out there. So if you go on eBay, it hasn't been a problem to keep me from using the car. The Rekla, which I'll show shortly, is still running fine. I drive it around town. I don't take it on longer trips since it's missing its airbags and it's not that safe. But it's been an excellent run around town errand car for up until now. So a few years ago, when I left this project last, I was starting to tear down the Stretch Vanagon chassis and finding various bits of rust and realizing that with the two different colors, I wanted to give it a paint job inside and out. And basically just thinking of all the wonderful things that I could do to it without really remembering my own favorite advice to people that are doing conversions. And that is, if you want to do a conversion of a car. If you want to do a restoration, that's a whole nother project. That's a whole lot more work. So I should have taken my own advice, and over the years, we could write it off to some illnesses and other things that come up, but mostly I just wasn't motivated to learn and to set up to do body work and to fix all the rust problems and so on. So as a result, about 6 months ago, I saw that there was really still no progress happening. They were just crowding up my shop, and I decided to put the leftover parts of the Stretch out to pasture. And so here we are in my my extra car storing pasture. And if I turn around, there's the front half of the Stretch. You can see it there. There's the Vanagon parts car that I bought for panels to replace the rusty panels in the white car, in the white back half. And there's the back half of the Stretch with its doors and things like that. And while we're here, I'll just point out some of the worst rust that sort of stopped me, and that is down here on the side. You might be able to see these are actually behind the grass. The panel is actually rusted through, so there's perforations. And if we go around inside the van, we may not see it because there's doors. Or you may. Let's see, I'll focus that down there. Maybe. You can see holes all the way through to the road. So when I was thinking of fixing that, replacing the panel, I thought while I'm at it, it'd be easier to fit the battery if the van were a foot shorter. So a friend of mine helped. We cut it in half. That's why it's 2 halves now. And then it sat for, another year, and I finally decided to give up on that. But I still want to do electric camping. So I started looking for fresh Vanagon halves so I could make another Stretch. Found the perfect back half on an auction site in Reno, and had a bid limit that I thought was well above what it was worth, and it went over that. And so I was surprised and thought, well, maybe that's not the thing to do. Maybe it's not time to make another Stretch to do this. In the meantime, I'd been analyzing the insides of the Tesla battery pack because I've been working on some other projects. And I've got some confidence that it would be possible to reconfigure that battery pack to fit under a stock length Vanagon. Like the one you see here in the background is the temporary replacement camper that I bought because years without a camper I really needed something. And this came up at a really good deal, so I picked it up from a friend, and I've been camping in that for a couple of years. But I didn't want to take that one apart to make an electric camper. That was just, then I'd go months again without being able to camp, and it's perfect season, and I'd be frustrated, and what if it failed again? Maybe this won't work. So the reason for this video is that there's been a bit of a milestone, and that is that yesterday I found an excellent deal on yet another VW camper. This one's a pop-top Westfalia multivan, a 1990. Really exactly what I wanted because I didn't want the extra weight and the narrower bed of the full camper for the electric setup, just to watch the weight budget, and just, this is what I thought I'd like. So when this one popped up on Craigslist, actually on Friday, I quickly drove off to Hood River, a couple 100 miles away, and picked it up yesterday and brought it home. And it's in very good shape. So now this is not a restoration project. I mean, it has its clear coat issues and some minor paint, but that's fine. I'm happy converting it like this and not doing anything more than cleaning it. So it's we'll do a little walk around here. It's a nice donor. It's a really good van, and in the meantime, it's not like I'm going to tear it apart immediately, because now that I have a plan and a project to make this Tesla powered, I can do a lot of engineering and planning before I tear it apart. So if the project doesn't go through, well, I haven't torn up a many $1,000 investment. So I'm really happy with this. It's also the darker blue, which I much prefer over the okay but lighter blue of the one I call Blue Tattoo. So let me show you the inside here. You can see this is the pop-top model, and but it has, in the current setup, it has the 2 rear-facing jump seats that are easily removable, plus the full 3-person wide bench back here, and it makes for a real cozy space. And I'm really excited. This could be the perfect donor for a electric conversion that I can commit to. So you see in the background, there's the Rekla. Actually, now that I see it, there's some blue tape where the door handle was. It's run great, but that's one thing that did malfunction was the door handle. And if it were under warranty, Tesla would have replaced it. But it's a wreck. It's a salvage. There's no warranty. And since I don't expect to keep driving it, I didn't replace the door handle. I just put some tape on it, and in the summer I leave the window open, and in the winter I go in through the passenger side. So let's see, that's most of it right there. New project. The Rekla's running really well. I've got 10,000 miles on it now. It started with 5, so that's been really good. I've been doing a project with my friend Kirk Swaney of Shift EV, and we're doing a conversion project for a customer where we're actually taking a brand new Model S and stripping out the components and putting them into a classic car. And at the moment, that's all I can say about it, that it's a classic car. And it'll be a sleeper. You won't be able to it won't be obvious that it's an electric conversion when you get in it until it's running. So doing that, I've had a lot of experience with making the minimal systems on the Tesla, the gateway, the drive system, the battery, and the charger, and all that stuff. Make all that run without some of the extra systems, like in that car. We've disconnected the radar and the autopilot and the parking sensor and the lights and all these things. We've even spoofed the shift lever and completely disconnected the steering wheel. Spoofed the steering angle sensor with one from GM because the Tesla one was too big to hide in the car. So that's been a fun project, and one of the great things that I've learned in that is that it's actually not that difficult to design and machine a custom upright for the suspension. Something that will hold the Tesla hub, the Tesla brakes, the Tesla wheels, but that mounts to the original car's suspension. So on my previous plan for the stretch, what I call the stretchla, I was planning to put the whole Tesla suspension under the car. And there were some tricky parts about that, besides making it all fit and connecting it. The one thing that kept coming back to me is that the track is so much wider that the wheels would be sticking 2 or 3 inches out on each side of the van. And that was unfortunate. So my target direction now for this, and you never know, things change, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, is to see if I can make custom adapter uprights. The back should be easy, the front might be a little more complicated, that will accept the Tesla hubs on the Vanagon suspension. And that'll bring the wheels in, it'll make it narrower, and if it works. So that's in the plan. Mounting the motor shouldn't be hard. We have the EVTV example where they've put a Tesla motor in the back of my old Doka that they got from me a few years ago. And it's real exciting to see them burning rubber, running that down the street. Really great. It just gets me more excited to, gotta have a Vanagon running. So I don't see motor mounting being a problem. Battery mounting, that might be tricky. So I've taken a tape measure and done approximate measurements, and my original idea of putting the battery just flush under the van, that still works, but on the shorter van I can only fit 10 of the 16 sub-pack modules that are in an 85 kilowatt hour pack, which is what this Tesla has. Similar to 100, if I'd have one of those it would be great, but I don't. So the 10 modules should fit in the original pack. Now I have 6 more left over that I need to do something with. And my approximate checking with the tape measure looks like there's enough room that I could make double-decker lumps on top of the 10 module pack, a 4-pack module in the middle, and then one on each side. And those should lift up and fit between the frame rails under a Vanagon. If that works, then that is really exciting because it allows converting of a Vanagon to Tesla power without any structural modifications of the Vanagon, other than welding on the mounts that will hold the battery, but no removal of major structural members. And I think, if that works, that'll be very attractive to other people with Vanagons, and who knows what we'll see. Maybe we'll see a Synchro with a D model under it or something like that. So that's my plan for now. Now, never say never. I don't know how long the enthusiasm for this will carry on. It seems really fun now, and it seems doable, and I'm trying to scale down the scope of the project a lot and not accepting feature creep until I have something basic running. So I hope to pull it off. And if not, well, then the plan will change again. And I just hope that the next update will be in less than 3 years, and and that I'll have something positive to report. All right. If you have been, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.
And so that's kind of, he has the same experience.
Very interesting.
You just wind up facing this rust and this stuff. All of it could be fixed, but maybe not today.
Right.
It's too easy to put off because it's kind of overwhelming. So
Yes.
His advice, and I reiterate it, is start with a good car.
Sure.
The conversion's going to come out fine, but it's expensive to convert one.
Yeah.
And it's going to work better than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, there you have a really nice conversion of a suck car.
Right. Right.
That's not really the outcome you wanted. I know you didn't want to have much tied up in the car in case it didn't work, but
Right.
what if it does work?
Yeah. That's quite true.
That's the thing. So I really think that the best work is on vintage cars.
Yes, sir.
Or favorite cars from the past. Of course, I think of a vintage car as something from the 50s and 60s. Actually, a car from the 90s is now
vintage.
20 years old.
Right.
So, it could be anything that you want, but you have to kind of hunt down a good example of it. Bill scored this week himself Tell us about it.
Well, as you know, I've got my Ranger, and it does pretty well with 80 miles, give or take, of range. But if I needed to go any further than that, like to St. Louis to see my parents or anywhere else for that matter, I'm kind of stuck. So I hit eBay again and just happened to find a 2001 Honda Insight. I've had one of these before and reluctantly sold it, but I got me back another one. And I couldn't be happier with it. It's just it's a quirky little car. It's certainly not for everybody. I understand why they revised it. It's very it's a driver's car in the sense that there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of gauges to watch, feathering the pedal, and you're really in control of the whole hybrid system, unlike a Prius where you just kind of jump in, put the gear, go.
Very aerodynamic, mostly aluminum, some plastic, and famous for 55, 60 miles per gallon.
There are guys out there that hypermile these things, take the mirrors off, put these kits in there so you can adjust, so you can manually control the motor and all that stuff. They'll get 100 miles a gallon.
And there was kind of a cult that was, they'd drive until they had 300,000 or 400,000 miles
right.
on them, and then go bid furiously on a baby that only had 125 or 150 on it.
Yeah.
But you kind of slid in on this one. How many miles did it have on it?
Well, both of them, in fact. This one, the first one had 35,000 miles on it, I think, and this one's got 64,000 miles on it. So it's a very, very young. It's just broken in, basically.
And how many Ducats did you have to fork over for something like that?
$4,700.
You stole that thing.
I stole it. I did. Yep.
And
no doubt.
They're very popular for EV conversions because, again, they're very aerodynamic and small and light. And they've got this enormous back, I guess it's a hatchback, but it's a funny thing.
It is a hatchback, and when you open the hatchback up, it's just this flat, load bay. But as soon as you pull all the carpet off and take some screws out, that's where the factory, they call it an IMA pack, to motor assist or whatever. That's where all those components are, the DC-DC converter, inverter, all that stuff's there. But if you take that out, you have this cavernous bay, this load space. It's huge. I mean, it is half the size of the car. It really is.
Nickel metal hydride batteries are not very energy dense.
Yeah.
So it's pretty big for not much battery.
That's right.
And you put lithiums in there, you got a lot.
Yeah.
But Bill likes the hybrid nature of this, so you can go on the road, kind of like a Volt or something.
Yeah. It's got a 10-gallon tank. I got about 330 miles on it, and I'm about halfway, so that's pretty cool.
Stay with us. We'll do more. Wanted to show them our little camera rig here, how we were shooting the drive unit, and we kind of have an access panel to the engine.
Pretty cool.
And it is pretty cool. You've got this is the best installation of our fill tanks ever.
Good,
the most convenient, and we have 2 cooling loops, one for the DC to DC converter and a charger, and one for the drive unit. Let's talk about the drive unit. We have had some misadventures, and you probably don't know about them, and we should probably tell you because it is important. One of the issues, we made a jig and put it in the car to try to position where the motor would be.
Yes.
And somehow we got it exactly 1 inch to the right. And so the seam of our gearbox is actually offset 1 inch to the right. This is bad news because we have equal length axles. And so we want them, unless we're going to change the length of them, to be in the right position.
Right.
That was the first problem. The second was a basic goal. We measured the drive plates on the existing Vanagon transmission.
Yes.
And how far apart were they?
I don't remember the exact distance.
He actually made a metal U that we could use to test that. We sent the first set of axles to California. We sent them an axle and spider gear and kind of a rough sketch of what we wanted to do, and they made us a drawing.
Yes.
Well, they sent us the drawing, but they had the thickness of the plate wrong.
That's right, yeah. They should have been 35 millimeters each plate. They came back 16 or something.
Right, and so don't trust any of your suppliers or machinists ever.
I just didn't notice it.
But it came back, neither one of us noticed it. We sent them off to China to have them made.
Yep.
They faithfully made them. We got Randy Lee to make it. He made it exactly like we said.
Exactly like we said.
And when we got them back and put them in, the first drive, the axle came apart.
Yeah, just popped out. The little balls popped out.
It didn't break. The little balls popped out of the CV joint.
Yeah, it overextended.
And we thought we'd broken an axle, which Bill had predicted we would, and I'd predicted we wouldn't, and I'm trying to use stock axles. We get it back in here. Bill's, our first drive ended in the walk of shame.
50 feet away, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad.
Well, it was 100 feet, but he had to walk back. We, towed it back, and it turns out that the CV joint had just popped the little balls out of the grooves,
Yep.
and nothing was actually damaged.
Not at all, no.
We just reassembled it and put grease on it again and put it back in, and it worked fine for about, that was when we discovered that we were 1.5 inches too narrow.
That's right, yeah. That's
Because 3/4 of an inch on each side had been taken off of the drive plate.
Exactly right, yep.
And so we're 1.5 inches too narrow, and we're 1 inch to the right.
Yeah.
And so we made a 1/2 inch plate for the left and drove about 2 days, and then you were some distance away when that one popped.
Yeah, that's right.
And we had Sperling tow him in on a flatbed truck and took it apart, and lo and behold, it was the same. Maybe a little scratch on part of the...
Yeah, it was a 1/2 inch closer, so that one of the balls, you could see where it sort of hit, but...
But unharmed.
No huge damage.
We reassembled it.
Yep.
And so we got, and you can see here on the left, there's like a shiny aluminum disc between our drive plate and the receiver on the axle.
Right.
That's 1 inch.
Yes, the left side's 1 inch. Yep.
And then the right side, we did the same thing, and it's
1/2 inch.
1/2 inch. So we have a 1/2 inch on the right and 1 inch on the left. That takes up our 1.5 inches too narrow.
Yep.
And the inch set to the right seems that'd be a 1/2 inch on a side, and that seems to be within the extension of the CV joints.
Yes.
Because we haven't had any further problems with it. So our motor is in to the right, and our axles, or our axle drivers, the stubs that go into the Tesla, are 3/4 of an inch too short.
Yep.
Those kinds of errors are not good. For right now, we have fought it to a standstill. I call this a creeping error. When you're building a house, you pour a footing or a basement first. If you get that messed up, things never get better. As you start framing, you're trying to take it out and account for it, and it gets worse. And then you put the brick on, and now the framing's off a little bit, and the errors kind of accumulate. So the beginning where you start, where the drive unit's placed, and the length of those shafts is important. Now we have a little bit different angle on the shafts, not much, and they're a little bit different length, and so the thing drives well. I think we've got it fought to a standstill, but it would have been so much easier had we paid attention to our measurements and had it properly centered, and our axle stubs the proper length, which we did measure, but we did not double check. And so,
yeah, and
measure twice, cut once.
Right, and along the way, one of our first videos when it was up on the lift and it was just tacked into place. That's when I really should. That's why you tack things, so that you can have it sitting there holding it, and then you do all your measurements again to make sure everything's great. And that's when I should have, I should have done it. But I had it tacked, and I was, all proud of myself, and just skipped that part. But that's when it would have been trivial to fix, and it could have been done right.
The good news is your mounting seems quite stout.
Absolutely.
Of course, we have to do NDE testing with X-ray equipment to find hairline cracks. Just take a look at it. But
yeah. Well, I've been trying.
We're putting some torque on that stuff.
Yeah, I've been trying to break it today. It's just not.
It doesn't seem to want to break. So your welding work seems to hold up very well. It's very clean. It looks good. Of course, it's painted black, so we can't really see it. It's disappeared. But this is the neatest installation of a drivetrain we've ever had, and it takes up less room
by a lot. It's amazing, really. You consider the power that's proven to have in the spaces. You could put another motor in there. Really.
Yeah, we could put another Tesla drive unit in the same place.
We'll have a dual, one on each wheel.
Right, one on each wheel. No, it's between the treasure chest availability, which is an unusual feature in a car.
Yeah.
But we have 2/3 of our battery there, a third under the spacious back seat. Our drive unit, motor and inverter and gearbox all between the wheels. And I guess we got the charger and DC to DC converter in the treasure chest too.
That's right, yeah.
So you can't tell that this is an electric car or where the pieces are.
Nope.
There's nothing to see.
Nothing at all.
It's just it worked out fantastic. So
did we show them our electric sign? I don't think we ever showed them our electric.
did we?
We got our electric sticker. Well, it's not a sticker, but it's a little thing.
I am not a wires hook flipper guy. We want people to know they're electric. I just can't drive around in something with green shit plastered all over it and hey, look at me stuff.
Yeah.
But we do want enough emblem work where people know that it's an electric car and can be duly amazed. And already driving this around town for 3 days, people are just mobbing me. A lot of them, just like the truck, they don't even know it's electric till they get up close.
Yeah.
But we do need a couple more emblems. And so I want to put some of those gold ones on the sides, the real small ones.
Yeah, the script ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so gold on yellow, that'll be pretty discreet.
Classic.
Anyway, that's the drive with a 1990 Volkswagen Vanagon Type 2 Transporter T3 with Tesla drive unit.
What do you call it? You got
the yellow rubber Doka.
Yellow rubber Doka.
It's our yellow rubber ducky. And the Tesla part didn't make it into the name. It was overshadowed by the Dip It spray job. Plasti-Dip spray job, which, like I say, has just brightened up. It's getting dirty again, but it's really easy to clean.
Yes.
And so we're delighted with it. I've ordered more spray to do touch-ups, just in a spray can. But they've got about 3 different yellows. I think they got Daytona, Muscle Daytona yellow, Blaze yellow, and standard yellow or something. So I got to figure out which one we've got. And so we'll be able to touch up the spray paint with a spray can.
Nice.
Stay with us. Okay, we are in the yellow rubber Doka with Tesla drive unit. I want to show you some of our stuff here. Here's Bill's JLD 404, which we can't really do without.
even with everything else.
I'm going to zero our trip meter here on this, and then we have a trip meter over here we can zero. We're at 92%. So this is our PKP 2400 switch. That's how we go, because it's really kind of hard to use the screen, particularly in the sunlight. But you can see the screen. We have an odometer and our voltage, our aux voltage, and we're at 92%. These are the speed hut gauges, and over here I have a, Bill has given us a knob to turn them up and down. This is our headlight switch. We have nothing on the fasten belts and brake at the moment. This is a charge light that comes out on a brilliant red when we're charging. This is our amps and RPM switch, which we can switch the tachometer to display either RPM or amps. However, most of the time we're down around 100 or 200 amps or something. It's really not that impressive to watch, is
No, if it stays up at the 600 for any length of time, you're sort of in another state. So
yeah, and so I leave it on RPM. This I'm kind of proud of. This has our Bill just got back from a doing some burnout, and we're up at 38 degrees, I guess, on the motor stator windings. And this is what I've been working on a lot, and that's our battery state of charge. So you can see we're at 92% on the EVIC. And here you see a mark between full and 3/4. That would be 87.5%. 3/4 would be 75%. A half would be 50%, so the mark between the two there would be 62.5%. And then you have 37.5% here, and then 25% and a quarter, 12.5% and 0. And we've got this working pretty well.
how is E? Does E mean that you got 0 volts in the battery, or does E mean that you're at...
E means the calculation is your capacity, which I've got set for 60 amp hours right now.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a 62.5 amp hour battery, but we only charge it to 384 volts, about 4 volts a cell. And so, as we can see here, we're at 381 at 92%. And Bill has made me a voltmeter. This is actually a 12 volt voltmeter, but it's CAN controlled. So I can scale our battery pack to that value, which is multiplied by 1,000 or something anyway, to go on CAN. And so we've been able to make it be a true battery voltage. And we're showing almost exactly 380 volts. I've got 381 on the thing, and Bill's measuring 381.1 on the JLD. So all that's working. So what it is your amp hours, your capacity, minus your amp hours, divided by your capacity.
Oh, okay.
So if we've used 10 amp hours, it's 60 minus 10, or 50 divided by 60, as expressed as a percentage.
All right. Excellent. Good.
And so that's calculated and put on there. And so that's kind of the setup. Bill and Dylan made me this beautiful carbon fiber vinyl and rubber thing for a cup holder, because I have used these big Yeti cups and never have any place to put them.
Doubles as a trash can too.
And Bill's console, this is kind of rough right now, but that'll all be kind of the same material as the upholstery, the blonde Camino, or what do you call it, blonde look, Palomino. And of course we're going to have a stereo.
We will have a stereo. Yes, we will. That's probably the next job, actually.
Okay.
Take 3.
Our first drive, take 17. We we put on a little brake, press the reverse. We note that it goes into reverse there. And we're backing out because we got creep on. And that, I didn't know how that would work out. This is a different weight and class of vehicle and everything, but it's worked out pretty good. But you don't really like creep.
Well, I've never owned an automatic. I've never owned an automatic. My wife is partial to it. In fact, she won't drive a manual transmission. But I've never owned one, so I don't really care for it. So it's nice to be able to turn it off. Local constabulary heard that people doing some burnouts.
Yeah,
people do that in this neighborhood. They're shady.
Yeah, but he sees me driving and he just laughs.
Like, false alarm.
False alarm. It wasn't anybody at EVTV. That guy drives 22 miles an hour.
They got them doggone golf carts. Nothing's happening here.
So, in my style driving, just a little pedal and I get great acceleration, but it's very quiet, very, very smooth. And so I'm trolling along. Our speedometer is showing 20 and our EVIC is showing 20. So I'm pretty sure that's close to the same thing.
I like how we got a little kilowatt meter too. That's always neat.
That shows positive and negative power.
I'm gonna puke.
Why are you going to puke?
I'm gonna puke. I gotta go. I'm gonna puke. Okay.
I'm having a tough time getting the drive done here, Bill.
Well, he knows how to get back. I got the cameras.
Okay.
Yeah. Going to Illinois, huh?
Let's go show Illinois. I was telling somebody the other day, what we really ought to do is rebuild this seawall.
Build a seawall.
Yeah, rebuild the seawall.
Yeah.
And, that was 65 and nothing.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
And that's about a quarter count. So, the amazing thing to me. So anyway, we rebuilt that seawall that keeps out the flood.
Yep.
And get Illinois to pay for it.
That sounds familiar. Why does that sound familiar? I've heard something like that.
And then, we can let people from Illinois in, but we got control of it.
Yeah. Why don't we make the sea pay for it? Make the sea pay for it. We're not going to seawall. Make the sea pay for it.
Well, no, we get the Illinois people to pay for the wall.
All right.
So, the vehicle, I don't know what I expected. I guess I expected it to run like a van. We know what an electric car feels like.
Yeah.
This thing drives like a Tesla.
But it's impossibly smooth. I don't know. I've never ridden in another Doka before, so I don't know what they're like. But
This is like this.
This is just nothing but smooth. There's no vibration. There's no noise. Suspension is supple. It's just nice.
Well, I drive a Tesla all the time, and this drives like a Tesla, except a Tesla sits down very low and very stable. This one's like up on coil springs or something, rolling around. I mean, that's what it feels like to me, like we're about to tip over.
Mm-hmm.
I could give it more throttle and do some stuff, but I feel like I'm gonna tip. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, because we have to add some spring height. That's what's going on with the front tires. I'm thinking, and you actually checked it, that they're catching on the rear fairing of the get better if you move them in an inch. I don't know, steering geometry as while I'm turning tight. But I open the turn a little bit and it's not a problem. So it's just on the edge. We're close. But it's kind of hard to get in this thing, for me anyway. And to add an inch and a half height, that's going to be pretty hard for me to get up into. So I like it lower, and of course you get better efficiency. I hate to use the term efficiency or coefficient of drag with a Vanagon.
We're in relative terms here.
It's kind of like pushing a barn door down the road anyway. And so that's an issue. But the lower you can get it to run, the better that will be.
Sure.
It's not going to get any better if you climb. But we're going to have to add some coilovers to raise it up, trying to clear that wheel.
Okay,
And I really like look at the depth wheels on here.
They look fabulous.
Yeah, one of the questions that you had was, were we using an adapter? How much are we sticking out because of the adapter?
Probably ½ inch to even a 3/4 of an inch.
So that might be all we need, but we'd have to re-drill the hubs. For a ½ inch. That's kind of tough to manage. But yeah, it just spins long. I drive a Tesla Model S a lot now. I was letting the wife drive it, but I've gotten where I kind of like it. And had been driving it through the winter. And this is very similar. I mean, I don't have power windows and stuff, but the steering with this big steering wheel is great. Does this have power steering?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
This is manual steering.
Well, it's very easy.
Yeah. It's a tight turning radius, too. I'm surprised how tight this actually is.
I think it gets tighter as you shave off tire. So we're down to 81% state of charge already. I've got the capacity set at 60 amp hours, which we should be able to do. But a 60 amp hour pack, we're using about a amp hour per mile is how that's working out with your JLD 404.
Okay.
My trip meter, I'm at 3.8 miles now, and we're at 7 amp hours. That doesn't make sense. Well, there's the reason. Through this whole drive so far, we've had the parking brake on. We've had everything go wrong, including our cameraman gets sick and have to get out of the car. We just did a 0 to 65 test, which I was quite pleased with.
With the parking brake on.
With the parking brake on.
Oh boy.
We've used 7.2 amp hours in 4.2 miles, and that's because we had the parking brake on. The rear drums were locked up.
Yeah. Well,
You know, some people shouldn't actually be allowed to own a car.
Right. Well, you don't like cars anyway, so.
I never had one car. My wife drives me to dinner.
You certainly don't like back brakes. Well,
My father had a construction company, and I had to learn to work on cars when I was about 10. And I never got any good at it because I hated it. But being the little guy, I was the one that got to crawl underneath, take the thing off, get my face full of dirty, oily dirt stuff. And we didn't have lifts and things. We kind of crawled underneath to drop the transmission and change the clutch and all that. On construction equipment, it was always getting banged up. And so I don't have any great love of cars. I like some classic cars, and I did have a Vanagon a wagon.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was at Boardwatch, and I had a business partner in a company called One Incorporated that did trade shows. And his business was doing pretty well. Mine was doing pretty well. And ours was doing pretty well. And he started buying these girly sports cars, like a Nissan NRX or something, and a Mitsubishi VR4 and that sort of thing. And I'm driving a Vanagon, but it's 1.5 miles to work. And he and a couple of my employees and everybody are like always, they're starting to get embarrassed that I'm driving around in this old Vanagon. It was 1.5 miles to work. It worked fine.
Yeah.
And I was skinny in those days. So I could get up in it, no problem. And so they kept after me. They wanted me to spend money on a car, so I went and bought a Hummer.
Well,
He said, well, that's not really, a race car. I said, no, I'll race you. He said, you're going to race me in the Hummer. I said, yeah, I get to pick the track. And so that was, kind of a joke of, okay, yeah, I'll buy an expensive new car, but it's not going to be one of these girly sports cars. And I drove around a Hummer for a couple of years. And so, yeah, I'm not real fond of cars, but I am fascinated by the electric vehicle technology, and it is a very different feeling to drive an electric car, and that is like hyper enhanced, of course, in the Tesla Model S, but it also appears to be quite true here in the yellow rubber Doka. And I really like the way it now we have gone above 60 degrees here, if you can see that. And our fan has come on the radiator.
Yep.
And that is now a configurable item in the Tesla drivetrain software, where you can set the cool on and cool off temperature, where that fan comes on and off. And so, yeah, wasn't that something I figured out? I'm doing about double the amp hours per mile that should be doing, and that's because I got my parking brake on. And this thing rolls a lot more freely. It really improves the rolling friction when you take off the parking brake.
It's amazing.
Enough.
Correlation and causation actually are the same this time.
It's a big thing. And not only should some people not be allowed to own a car, but then a lot of people who do own cars shouldn't be allowed to drive them. And I qualify in that category too. So we're going to go out on a highway with the parking brake off, which reduces some of the smells that electric cars make when they have the parking brake on. And this thing just rolls out as easy as it can be. We haven't had the front
believe we're just under 40 kilowatt.
Yeah, 35.
Which isn't a hell of a lot of power, really.
No, it isn't.
It's certainly not 350 kilowatts.
No, it isn't. You only need that for that 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. We haven't really timed that in this yet.
No.
I'll let you handle that.
Well, that's kind of the beauty of electric vehicles, isn't it? That it just 40 kilowatts is 40 kilowatts, no matter how big your motor is.
Right.
We could have one of the old HVDSs in here at Warp 9 or something, and be cruising at 60 just the same.
Yes. For maximum efficiency, you need to be in a certain zone of what the motor will do. But we don't really need that extreme efficiency. It's like Augustus says, it's better to have it not needed than need it when you have it. And so I can at any point just a little bit of throttle and we just jump up to 70 miles an hour and the thing's rolling smooth as it can be. So I'm surprised that a van, and I mean this is a 27-year-old van, and a Volkswagen at that, but with a Tesla driving in it, it's just extremely smooth and very enjoyable. Right.
Let's flip your switch over to amps to see just what we're doing here. Oh, I got that backward filling. Yeah, as you say, it's just kind of down at the bottom, isn't it?
We're showing a little under 100 amps.
Yeah. That matches up with the JLD and all of our other.
Yeah, if I press it, you can see it come up.
Yep.
And it is nice to see that trim line.
Yep.
Of course, when I go into regen, it goes to 0, and then it comes back up. I did an absolute value on amps, so it displays them. That's back to RPM.
Yeah.
And we're flowing 60 miles an hour and 7,500 RPM. We are up to close to 80 degrees on our motor stator temperature.
Yep.
And so on the freeway, it does warm up.
Yep. Well, I flipped the display over here so you can see we've got our motor and inverter temperature. We've got our motor at 78, but our inverter's just cool as a cucumber at 37.
And that's why I put the motor temperature on the dial.
Okay.
The inverter doesn't show you very much, but because they're kind of interlinked, your motor is really going to pull the inverter.
Yeah.
But the inverter will be cooler. And so I chose to display the motor stator temperature. Yep. I could probably make that a configurable item if it was at all important. There's 4 or 5 temperatures reported of the DC capacitor temperature, the inverter controller board temperature, the inverter temperature, the inverter heatsink temperature, and the motor stator temperature, and there may be an inlet temperature. So that the Tesla system, they do a lot of stuff. So
A bunch of redundancy, I guess. Or does it compare it when it figures something out?
yeah, I don't know what they actually use all of it for. I don't actually have a use for all of it, so I don't know.
could be a resolution thing. I don't. Who knows?
There's a little delay, but now I'm going into regen. They should be coming up.
Yep. There's a little slider bar along the bottom. It's kind of nice.
That's our current.
Yep, regen to the left. Power to the right.
We're into regen here. Kind of past what my scale is.
Yeah, it only goes to 8. Yeah, the power goes up to 1600. I don't think we'll ever see that. Yeah, we can change that scale a bit. And there we can change our display here to show RPM on the left and Newton meters of torque there on the right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I don't think our watt hour per mile is quite right. It says it's showing 505.
You know, that may be right. We had the parking brake on. It's kind of a running thing.
Yeah, it's like an average. It's not instantaneous.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably right on the money then.
It's kind of a rolling average.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go.
And yeah, I think I did one drive with the parking brake on the full 6 miles. And it was disappointing, 535 watt hours per mile. But when I released the parking brake, it went down to about 325. And a recent drive in town where I never went above about 45, 306 watt hours per mile.
That's incredible.
The vehicle weighs 3,530 pounds, so that's a little bit better. That would indicate 353 watt hours per mile using our 10-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
And so we're more like 11 to 1 at 306. And that's pretty good. That's a good build.
Yeah. It's amazing how just close that the rule of thumb always winds out to be.
Yeah, it is.
Across the board, any car, basically.
Yeah.
Plus or minus a few, but it's there.
Some of the OEM cars are getting up close to 12 now. And,
Really?
Yeah, they're improving.
The i3, isn't the i3 the BMW? That's one of the best ones, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's quite efficient. But the Tesla, of course, all electric cars, Bill, it's how you drive them. I can go out and show you 600 watt hours per mile, and I can probably do a 225 in this thing.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
It's how you drive it.
And the temperature, too. I've noticed the cold really wreaks havoc on the cells, on the batteries. Even if you don't have the heater blowing, you just get less capacity when it's cold.
Well, but your energy usage will be about the same. The air is a little thicker, so it's steam. But it does vary. But it's most variable depending on how you drive it.
Yeah.
Our figure is if you just kind of like keep track of it for a month at the micro level, it's going to work out to about that. Just mixed driving, just drive the car like it's a car.
Yeah.
For a month, that's how it comes out. But if for any particular drive, I can give you any number you want.
There you go.
It's pretty easy. So it does depend on how you drive the car. Cape Girardeau, of course, is 4.5 miles across, 4.5 miles lengthwise. So unless you're leaving town, this will have about a 68 mile range, I guess, max.
Yeah.
That means I'll need to charge it every week.
Right.
Maybe twice a week if we're doing a lot of test driving.
Yeah. Maybe once a day if we're doing a lot of burnout videos.
When you charge, this red light comes on, and when you finish charging, you have to remember to press the odometer, and that resets your state of charge.
Oh, okay.
There's kind of a way to not do that, but we have to power that current sensor all the time. And so if I leave the controller on, we can put it on the charger and watch it climb back up. But if I turn the controller off, since it powers the current sensor, we're not measuring while we're charging. And so you have to reset this.
How's the temperature doing?
Oh, I'm down to 60.
Yeah, 62. I'm showing here.
62 and a half.
Yeah, it's come down quite well. So that radiator's doing its job, and the fan's doing its job. The whole cooling system is doing its job. There was some concern over the volume of the water flowing and radiator size and all that stuff, but it seems like we done good.
Well, we wound up using the full radiator of the Vanagon, which is massive, and it has a very big fan on it. And you would think that would be overkill. I'm not feeling the love. I think it's necessary. With this Tesla drive unit, because of the strange way, and we've described this in an earlier episode, how the fluid goes through the drive unit. I wouldn't have done it that way. I like to have put the inverter and the motor on two separate loops. But that isn't how they chose to do it. And of course, they have the ability to actually chill the cooling.
They run it through the air conditioning system, don't they?
And so, but even then, a Tesla on track day runs into a problem pretty quickly. It's just not designed for that. We got up close to 80 degrees centigrade on the motor, which has a cooled rotor, and we still got up to 80 degrees on the motor, pulling 90 amps for 5 minutes, 10 minutes on the freeway. But that leaves a lot of room. Our inverter was under 40 degrees. That can go to 80. But I like having that big radiator and that big pump and the big fan. And as I say, if we cool down, I think you've got it set to 55 degrees for cool off. The fan will go back off. And so all that works for me. Our speedometer's working, our trip meter on there. Now I'm at 15.1 miles, and we're showing 19.38 amp hours. With the brake off, it's right at an amp hour per month. And so that works pretty well. We could easily put another one of those Renault influenza packs in the back bed. In fact, we could do that as a option for travel.
Sure.
But and that would get us up well over 130 or 140 miles on a charge. It's kind of like why we've done so many builds. I've gotten where I shoot for 60 or 65 miles of charge.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's just a waste of money on batteries.
Right.
And this is something that's, going forward, going to be part of EV life. Now, I would say most people, if I lived in St. Louis, you can drive 100 miles a day just ratting around town. Because it's all sort of geographically dispersed. But the industry itself will face this. I think it may already be happening, but it will certainly happen at about the 300-mile mark. You're simply not going to want to pay for the batteries to go 400 miles on a charge. At the point where they tell you they're building a car point is about 300 miles, which in itself is, for most of us, as I say, we've done so many builds that I shoot for 65 now. We've proven we can build the car on a charge using lithium iron phosphate cells.
Yeah.
So I can do it. But for us and what we would actually do, even testing a car, why?
Yeah, and my thought too would be once these 300 and 400 mile range cars start going out, people will drive them like they drive them, and as they're going to work, they'll look down and notice that they've only got a quarter of their battery left and go, oh, I need to do that when I get home. They get home, they go cook dinner, they go to sleep, they wake up, they go to work, and they go, oh, I'm at an eighth of a battery, and they end up running out on the way home. Yeah, even with all the mileage, because you just don't charge it, so right. You never get in that habit.
I have ridden back, me and Damian McGuire rode back in a flatbed truck because I hadn't charged the vehicle in a week, or was it 10 days?
Right.
I couldn't remember.
Right. So you just never get in that habit of just plug the thing in when you get home.
Whereas when you have a short range,
that's right.
Plug it in every night.
That's what you do.
And so, believe it or not, the 6 seconds it takes to plug it in is sometimes just too much trouble. Right. Once you get used to this stuff, and so that's the gig. We are going down Broadway in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. As I say, we've got this seawall that keeps the flood out of the town. I think we ought to rebuild that wall and get Illinois to pay for it.
Yeah. I think they should make it out of glass. Wouldn't that be kind of cool if they made a long glass wall? You could see all the bodies and stuff floating down the Mississippi.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
This drive is a bit reminiscent of one that you made about, 7 or so years ago.
Yes, it is. Oh, I went down Main Street.
You went straight down Main Street.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Why not? Because they've just repaved Main Street.
It's beautiful, yeah.
But you can see ahead of us here, there's the wall.
Oh, they got the door open.
They have the door open now. A couple weeks ago, we were at a historic flood level, I think up about 48 feet. And it was just a couple of feet from the top of that wall. Because we have drones now, people taking video of that sort of thing. But then we've got little vignettes painted on the wall and everything. But the wall was built it was completed in 1964. I think we ought to rebuild it and get Illinois to pay for it. And all these people from Illinois that have come over here and are living, shredding a little Tesla tire there, I say we send them back. And a lot of our crime will go away. Yes, they've just repaved Main Street here. And so we've got new concrete paving on Main Street. Nice. No idea why. I think they just felt the thrill of all that money they're getting. They've built a casino here now, and the city's getting a lot of money for that.
They don't spend it, they don't get it next year kind of thing.
I just don't know. It's kind of one of those things. Most of the town, the street looks like the Philippine Islands or some third world country here in Cape Girardeau. People don't realize how savvy Trump was on putting his finger on little things that don't sound like much to the East Coast bubble, but most of mid-America used to have beautiful streets and now does look like a third world country. And what happened? And it's because the people in Washington, D.C. took our money away and squandered it like whores and sailors on nonsense instead of the infrastructure that tax money is supposed to go for.
I don't think I've ever driven past this store, furniture store, and they didn't have a sale going. They always have a sale going. How do they do that?
It's just more or less constant.
It's always half off.
Sale. It's always half off. this seawall and get Illinois to pay for it. So this has been an adventurous ride. Our cameraman got sick and had to get out of the car. We drove across the bridge into Illinois and back with the parking brake on. And we shred a little Tesla tire every time we go around a corner. But I'm delighted with the way the speed HUD gauges are working.
Yep.
Our touch screen. Although I kind of knew from driving the Tesla that it would not be terribly useful for touch. These great big clunky keys on the PK 2400 are perfect for controlling the gear, increasing and decreasing the regen on the fly, and of course setting our creep off and on, and resetting our trip meter. And
is that the one that you have to reset after you charge it?
No, I just pressed the odometer.
Oh, okay, you pressed the odometer, I see.
The trip meter is a little redundant. See, when we were doing this, we didn't have the speed HUD gauges. Now I've got a trip meter on that works fine.
Could you?
17.1 miles.
Could you reconfigure that PKP so that it resets the miles?
Sure.
Well, there you go.
I can have it reset the, I can have it do anything you want. But instead of trip, it could reset, the state of charge, for example.
Well, that'd be kind of nice, huh?
So here we're pulling in.
We can shred some more tires on this hill.
Oh yeah, might be a little bit.
Oh, nope. Well, excellent. We did 18 miles.
Yes, we did. Right, I've got 17.3 here. You're showing 18. Must round it up. And we put it in park. And of course, we want to put on the thing. I'm showing 17.3 at 20.82 amp hours. And again, 7 of it was with the parking brake on.